Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a true friend and leader for public education in Missouri. Governor Jay Nixon comes from a family of educators and is a product of our public schools all the way from elementary school through law school. He truly knows the value of public education. As our state's chief executive, Governor Nixon has demonstrated strong leadership in tough times. He is focused on creating jobs, investing in education and job training, and moving our state and our economy forward. Governor Nixon knows that our public schools must play a vital role in that process. Our state needs an educated, trained, and skilled workforce to compete for the jobs of tomorrow. And Governor Nixon is committed to strengthening our public schools to meet that challenge. As Commissioner of Education, I am proud to work closely with Governor Nixon to strengthen and improve our public schools. And it is my honor to welcome the Governor to our 50th Annual Cooperative Conference this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Governor and a true friend of public education, Jay Nixon.
Good morning. I'm sure you all are incredibly uplifted by my budget director's presentation. Welcome to my daily, all kidding aside, Linda Lubering, in my view, is the most outstanding budget director in America and has helped us manage some incredible situations over the past 2.5 years, and it's an honor and pleasure to have her serving with me to help Missouri. Thank you, Commissioner Castro, President Hershen, State Board of Education. I really want to thank them and everybody here, but especially Chris and Peter and the rest of folks there for setting an ambitious but attainable goal of putting Missouri schools in the top 10 by 2020. We don't say these words idly, and once we say them, we try to effectuate plans that will succeed. And I thank each and every one of you here today and the last couple of days who have come from every corner of our state. And I look around this room, I see many folks that I have seen and the First Lady and I have seen across our state. I thank you for the vital work you do each and every day. Because all of us know that the state cannot succeed unless our schools succeed. Now, I'm a true believer that a quality education is the key to achieving the American dream. That's an opportunity every single child in our state deserves. Public education is the key to the sustained economic progress of our state as well as the ability of our nation to compete in a global economy. Working together, we have the opportunity to create transformational change that will take Missouri schools from good to great. Now, as governor, I believe that this change is possible and, quite frankly, vitally important to the future of our state. We want Missouri students to receive world-class education so that they will stay right here in the Show Me State to live, work, and raise their families. It's also vitally important to me on a personal level because my commitment to public education runs deep. I attended Missouri public schools from kindergarten through law school. My mom was a special education teacher and the first woman president of our local school board in DeSoto. The GI Bill was my dad's ticket to MU, which led him to a career in public service as mayor of DeSoto and a community judge. I married into a family of public educators. My wife, Georgianne, is a product of Jefferson City Public Schools, where she taught for a time. She earned her degrees in education and law from MU. Her mother taught in a one-room schoolhouse, and her dad, the late Hubert Wheeler, was a school principal in Aurora before he became Missouri's education commissioner from 1946 to 1971. Our two sons, both of whom are current students here at MU, also are products of a public education. In Missouri, supporting public education is not a political issue. It is an enduring value we all share. That distinction is important and vital to each of you and to all of us as we look to what the challenges we face in the future. Now, as governor, I've worked hard to strengthen public education during three very difficult budget years. Budgets are about protecting priorities. You all know that. I don't have to tell you that. So while I made the tough cuts necessary across state government, I protected public education, providing stable level funding for our K-12 classrooms. Earlier this summer, I signed into law a measure that I had promoted to improve our students' preparation for careers in science and technology. We'll give a $500 incentive bonus to A+ and Access Missouri recipients who score well on advanced placement exams in math and science. It's very clear. Those degrees lead to jobs. Those degrees lead to competitive careers for the kids walking into our schools. I expanded funding for our A+ scholarship program so that more eligible Missouri students can earn a scholarship covering tuition and fees at any public two-year community college and technical school in our state. It's a program I believe in for two reasons. Number one, it has some significant aspects of help when kids are in high school. Checkpoints that are above everybody else's around there. But secondly, and equally importantly, it provides for those students that want to a two-year beginning pathway to a four-year degree, which can get us to where we actually need to get as a country, which is kids graduating from college without significant debt. I'm a huge believer that one of the reasons we've seen a slowdown in some of the aggregate demand numbers out there is that when, I tell the story a lot, some of you may have heard me say it, when I was University of Missouri Law School, my first semester at law school, tuition was like $350 a semester. This is the quality of lawyer you get for $350 a semester. But that being said, when you compare that to what my son will pay here in what Georgiana and I are paying with my son, and I think that distinction is important. The mistake I just made when I said what I said, when I said my son will pay, and well, that's a massive shift as a society. Back when we were in school, you could work in the summer. Mom and Dad help a little bit. I work construction, and you could have enough money to pay for things and make your way through. And then when you graduated and had your degree and got that first job, you bought a house, you bought a car, and you became a consumer in the economy. That is not, just a few short months ago, a statistic came out that showed that the amount of student loan debt in this country now exceeds credit card debt in this country. Grapple with that for just a second. The amount of student loan debt, the amount of pressure we put on people who want to improve themselves by getting more education, the speeches we give about being necessary to get into a new economy, the present they are getting upon graduation is debt. A+ is one way to deal with that. More and more families are choosing that as the first 2 years. And it's just very important that we continue to fund and continue to expand and make that program as robust as possible so that students and their families, if the students are willing to work hard and play by the rules, get an opportunity to get that first 2 years of college as an investment we all make for them. Very important program, and very important that we continue to move it. And it's the demand for the program obviously is going up. But it is extremely important. People talk to me about why am I so, focused on tuition. It's simply because it's risen past the ability of folks to pay for it. And in a world in which we hear a lot of speeches about debt, having a system that guarantees debt for the vast majority of kids that go to college is something we're going to continue to work on to provide more access. We've worked hard to maintain our rigid fiscal discipline. It has preserved our spotless AAA credit rating from all three rating firms. And that does two things. Saves your district's money when you're out there on a bond issue because your interest rate checks off ours. So it's important that we keep this AAA rating so that we can save dollars there. But second of all, you don't have to wonder, like some states have, when it comes time for the payments from the state, whether they're going to come to you. We pay our bills in Missouri, and we pay them on time. And when you look at your compatriots across the country, so this AAA rating, this fiscal discipline, they are not by accident. They are important values we all share, just like you all. You can't look in the eyes of your teachers. You can't look in the eyes of your employees and say, oh, I'm going to pay you next week or next month. Just work a little harder. So rigid fiscal discipline is vital in public services so that we have predictable, met goals. Another thing we've done in the past 2 years, we've awarded more than $162 million in no-interest bonds for school renovation, construction, and development projects in every corner of our state, saving the taxpayers from many of the districts here millions of dollars and making investments that will pay off for generations to come. It has been wonderful to see those levies approved on those zero-interest bonds. We went community after community, 70%, 72%, 67%. Those communities support public education, are willing to invest in it if we're willing to help make that investment a little smarter. So, school starts in about 2 weeks. And that's always an exciting time of the year, fraught with expectation. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there's at least one place where the start of school will be even more special this year, and that's down in Joplin. The fact that the school will start on time, August 17th, less than 3 months after the worst tornado in our history, is a testament to Joplin and the state of Missouri and each one of your districts and each one of your counties' commitment to its schools and children. It also reflects a strong state and local partnership that brought every possible resource to bear to get Joplin schools up and running again. I would have C.J. Huff and his team stand up and get applauded by everybody, but I think they're like painting classrooms in an old Target store right now. But I want to tell you from day one, the strength that this state has shown to support. I was just down in Joplin again yesterday going through a number of things we're working on. We're now over 60,000 volunteers from all 50 states, from all corners of our state that have helped, millions of dollars. But the real differential for us is having leadership in those schools that said, on day 2, we're starting on August 17th. That's what this community is going to do. Mother Nature's not going to back away our responsibility. And it has been tremendously inspirational to work with those folks. Now, Missouri has good schools. We all know that. Together we can make them great. Because when we look at the data comparing our students' performance in 2005 and 2009, it is clear we are capable of rapid, sustainable progress. We've made dramatic improvements in raising MAP scores for students in grades 4 through 8. And we're now ranked 11th in high school graduation rate, tantalizingly close to the top 10. But it's equally clear we have a lot of work ahead of us. We've lost ground in ACT scores, and we've fallen into percent of graduates taking the ACT. The percent of our graduates taking AP exams and scoring a 3 or higher is unacceptably low. Missouri ranks 48th and 46th, respectively. In addition, too many of our high school graduates aren't prepared to take the next big step in their education. That's true whether they're entering the workforce, a certification program, or a 2- or 4-year college. The statistics on remediation bear that out. About 37% of all high school graduates who go on to our public institutions require remedial help. And at several of our community colleges, that number reaches 60%. And that's simply unacceptable, and it's something that we can make a difference on. Last winter, I became chair of the Education, Early Childhood, and Workforce Committee of the National Governors Association. And I've seen some of the innovative strategies used to improve performances in other states and other countries. That's why I endorsed the Top 10 by 20 strategy laid out by Commissioner DeCastro to take Missouri schools from good to great. As part of that strategy, we need better access to high-quality early childhood education. I strongly support Missouri's Race to the Top application for an early childhood education grant. Education starts at the beginning. We need high standards with appropriate measurements to track student progress. I'm pleased to see the commitment you have made to adopting the Common Core standards, and I thank you for that leadership. And I look forward to the State Board's adoption of the newest version of the Missouri School Improvement Plan. I know it has not been without First Amendment interaction, but it is something that, in a good form, will make a difference, and we need to get done. We need to do more to prepare, support, and reward our good teachers and school leaders and push the average to extraordinary. A strengthened teacher evaluation process based on reliable data and analysis will help accomplish that. You know, being a public school teacher is a high calling. The good ones have intelligence, passion, hearts, guts, and quite frankly, they have really high expectations for the young folks in their classes. The great ones, they change lives. Missouri has a lot of good teachers who want to be great teachers so they can help their students excel. Our teachers should have access to the training and resources they need to achieve excellence. We need to work together, government, taxpayers, administrators, teachers, parents, and students, to put our schools on a trajectory toward global excellence. We need to lift our gaze to the global horizon because we are competing against the world. When I went to DeSoto, it felt like sometimes you had to compete against the kids that were in your class, and maybe you'd have some sort of competition in debate or sports where you'd have to deal with some kids from around that area. When I went to the University of Missouri, you had to compete in the classes with whoever was there, and I went to law school, you had to compete with who was in law school, and when I got out, I basically competed with other lawyers in Missouri to try to do a better job and represent my clients. Not so easy for our kids. They're not competing just against their neighbors down the road. They're not competing against folks just in their state. The marketplace of the future, the competition of the future, is worldwide. We are not just competing against our region. We are competing against the world. And it's a competition that we're going to win. And we're going to win because of the professionals in this room and the professionalism we have in this state that's willing to lead in that endeavor. Now, in order for our children to compete for the best jobs in the 21st century economy, they've got to perform as well as or better than their peers around the globe. And every bit of time and energy we expend defending the status quo is time and energy we need to move us forward closer to our goals. We need to bring the bottom tier up to the world average and do it quickly. At the same time, we need to bring our average higher to meet the global average. At the National Governors Association meeting in February, we heard a productive and provocative presentation on successful school reform in other countries, led by some of the top education experts in the world. We also heard some cautionary tales about the soft tyranny of low expectations from U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. We looked at the countries that have made rapid progress, like Singapore. We looked at countries that have made slow and steady gains with consistently high results, like Finland, and the countries that have achieved sustained excellence, like Japan. All of the successful reformers and strong performers have a few things in common. They start from the premise that rigorous common standards are desirable. They put in place transparent accountability measures that elicit the active support of government, business leaders, communities, and parents. They invest in recruiting, developing, rewarding, and retaining effective, high-quality teachers. And when they do, they lift the ceiling, raise the floor, and improve student performance at all levels in between. Now, in the future, in the not-too-distant future, more than two-thirds of the jobs will require an advanced degree, whether it's a degree from a two-year community college or a four-year university or a technical program or other credential. That's why last year at my Higher Education Summit, we laid out a goal of getting 60% of Missourians degrees beyond high school by 2020. We made progress last year towards that goal. A number of folks getting degrees, a number of people accessing higher education at all-time highs. And we're busy working on the challenge of 750,000 Missourians who have college hours but don't have degrees, that are citizens among us out there that we need to get back in the system and get their degrees and strengthen themselves. All of that is vitally, vitally important. We need students to be more proficient in math and science. We need to train a workforce ready to step into high-tech careers of the future, from advanced manufacturing to clean energy to developing high-yield, drought-resistant crops. In this job, you get to go a lot of places. You get to see a lot of people working. And as most of you know, we've made a significant play to build the cars of the future in the Show Me State. and been successful at it, saving 4,000 jobs at Ford Clay Como and getting a solid agreement from Ford to invest $400 million to build a product of the future right here in the Show Me state. I tell you something, though, those workers that are working in those modern assembly plants, not our mother and father's auto workers. They're not just taking the suction cups and putting the windshields on and waiting for the next one and putting it on. Oh my gosh, you have to program robotics. You have to change for the different cars. We're moving to a time in which real-time manufacturing. And we were visiting the Ford Clay Como plant where they were making the hybrid Escape. We also make the F-150 there, but making the hybrid Escape. Every one of those vehicles on the line that was being made had already been sold. The real-time manufacturing and the ability to order what you want and have that delivered, not just from a dealership where they're sitting out in the sun waiting to be sold, but from the beginning of a manufacturing line. To program the computers and the robotics to do that requires an agile team workforce. It's much different. You can't just get out of high school and get those jobs these days. And that's just manufacturing. In place after place after place, our students need the critical reasoning skills and creative problem-solving abilities that will allow them to collaborate fully as global citizens to meet the global challenges confronting mankind. And make no mistake, different students, as you know, are lit up by different bits of education. We not only have to have solid Common Core standards, but we need to make available where we can to students all kinds of ways to learn, whether it's art and music, whether it's after-school programs or not. We cannot have just a simplistic one-size-fits-all for every brain out there and narrow our curriculum so tightly that the creative adapters of the future are bored out of excellence. We have to meet. Because you know, we got some big problems to solve as a world. And some of those young folks sitting in the classes in your schools, they're the ones that are going to have to solve them. We need to feed a hungry planet. We need to find new sources of energy that don't compromise national security or the environment. We need to improve the productivity and sustainability of agriculture around the world. The stakes for public education have never been higher. To take Missouri schools from good to great, we face another significant challenge: funding. As you heard Budget Director Linda Lubring say, the money projected to come from the lottery for education this year simply isn't there. That makes it incumbent upon us to engage our constituencies in finding and funding and getting the funding our public education deserves. When Missouri was made a state in 1821, land was set aside in each county for free public schools. Talk about education running deep as a value in our state. That first act was an important one. In 1945, our current state constitution reaffirmed the guarantee of a free public education for all school-aged children until the age of 21, paid for through a statutory funding mechanism. The foundation formula changes passed a few years ago contained funding targets that did not contemplate a national recession. Unintended shifts in funding already have started to occur among your districts, and even more will occur if we don't fix the formula this year. Some districts would be the anomalies, receiving significantly more funding, but many others would receive less. Last year, Senator Pierce and Representative Thompson, two outstanding Missourians who share public education as a value, in my opinion, introduced a bill, which I supported, that would prorate the formula in a way that recognizes fiscal realities and bring predictability to all the districts. It didn't make it across the finish line. Next year, it must. This year, as you know, because of the economy, our budget challenges are continuing. We must balance the budget and pay our bills on time. We need to pay our share of disaster recovery costs in Joplin, the Boot Heel, parts of northwest Missouri experienced flooding, and other areas of the state hit by disasters, and we will. Those costs have not been totaled yet, but they are likely to run into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And we need to give the foundation formula more money. The best and most timely way to do this is to rein in the uncontrolled growth of tax credits. Here is our challenge. Tax credit programs have built up a powerful political clientele. Meanwhile, funding for education has remained flat. That's why in April of 2010, I called on public education leaders across the state to join together and push for comprehensive tax credit reform. This reform would safeguard our continued investment in public education and lay the foundation for economic growth for the 21st century. I subsequently appointed an expert bipartisan commission that spent 4 months reviewing Missouri's 61 tax credit programs. The commission's findings, released in February, were stunning. From 1998 to 2010, tax credit redemptions grew by more than $400 million. That's $400 million annually. That's a growth of almost 408% between 1998 and 2010. The redemption of tax credits has been swallowing up an ever larger percentage of our net general revenues. Again, more than quadrupling over that same period. Many of these are entitlement credits that, once they get them, we pay them. That math simply doesn't add up for a brighter Missouri future. The Commission recommended a series of common sense reforms that would bring long overdue fiscal discipline to these entitlements. As we sit on the cusp of a special session where this will be on the agenda, this is a critical moment. We will never have a better opportunity than this September to reform tax credits. It won't happen. This is the moment. And the way I look at it, it's simply a matter of priorities. Reform tax credits, or take no action and perpetuate the topsy-turvy status quo of what I call 1, 2, 35, 45. 1, we're first in the country in historic tax credits. 2, we're second in the country in low-income tax credits. Number 3, we're 35th in K through 12 funding. Number 4, we're 45th in per capita funding for higher education. We can change that. Okay? Sometimes the discussion of this stuff sounds abstract, because it doesn't directly touch, what you're doing. It's off somewhere else. But I'm telling you that the issues, after all the work I've been doing for 2.5 years and all of the work that a lot of other folks have been doing, is teed up and will be teed up in September. And I'm telling you, we can change it. But it's not going to happen on its own. It's not going to happen by continuing the way we are, where the constituencies built up around these are very, very active and very involved and very good at dealing with policymakers in the Capitol. Y'all are educators. Help us educate everybody in the state how important it is at this critical juncture to free up this funding so that it doesn't solve all the challenges we have in education funding. But we cannot continue on this path. If you continue on a 408% increase for credits and leave everything else flat, and we continue, especially as the economy ticks back up, and we are turning the corner, we're beginning to see those rays of dawn in a new economy, and these tax credits get going even more, we'll just have the same problem bigger in years out. This is the time. But we've all got to work together. State government, school districts, community colleges, university, our business community, our legislature. If we do this, we will help provide the resources to help our children learn, achieve, and succeed. It's always nice to be basically the final speaker at a conference in which everyone in front of you is thinking about what they're doing next after you're done. And with school starting in just a few weeks, there's a lot on your to-do list, So, but let me take my 40 seconds of personal privilege and end this. And I'm sorry, I've got to go. We lost a soldier, and I'm going to go be with their family here in a minute. But What I said at the beginning of this, that public education is a value we share. It's a value that is being challenged out there by some. People like to criticize and attack public education, even though over the last 20 years we've been extremely competitive in the state and continue to deliver all across the Show Me State. They attack the things that go wrong and don't support the things that go right. And that public discourse makes it more difficult for all of us to do our job of educating kids. So I would like to conclude by saying I would also ask everybody, even though we have some significant differences with some of these folks, to help us from the Show Me State, the way I've tried to do as your governor the last 2.5 years, have a civil discourse about these matters. Have a thoughtful discussion about where we want to go. Because there is a big difference between a value and an opinion. An opinion is something you may have about who the Chiefs ought to keep as their third running back. A value is something that you believe, that's part of you. So we start out ahead of those simple-minded critics that want to undermine the system of public education that we have built so strong in this state. It stands on the shoulders of giants to provide opportunities for every kid that walks through the doors of a public school. Because I'm speaking to the group of my state that doesn't get the luxury of ever saying no. Every kid that moves to your district, every family, whatever that challenge may be or that opportunity may be, walks through those doors, and you are responsible and held accountable for it. And that's a challenge, but it's also a bigger part of our value. We will serve everyone. We will go from good to great. We will make the top 10. We will take on some of the special interests that have been bleeding away money that should be in your classrooms. We will do that, and we will do that now. Thank you very much.